Hey, everybody, we are going to talk about some stocks that you might not have heard of before. That shouldn't surprise you too much because Tyler is joining me and he likes to talk about stocks that we haven't heard of, but even this one's a little, out there for his picks. I'm going to talk about one too that is a relatively unknown company. And before we dive in, please take a minute, check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. You'll get the top 10 stocks to buy right now. It's a great way to support this work we're doing. Again, that link is fool.com/Frankel. So I guess I'll go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to talk about a company that is an infrastructure play, but not the kind that we often talk about. The company is called Sky Harbour. Ticker symbol is SKYH, and they are a play on the private aviation market. Specifically, they build private aviation hangars, which you might not think of it because, let's face it, I don't own a jet. Tyler doesn't own a jet. The vast majority of people watching this don't own a private jet. But one of our fellow fools is a private pilot. He has a little plane and told us that, and told me that, this is a big underserved market. There's a lot of demand for private hangars. Modern private jets, I didn't realize this, are significantly larger than they were, say, 10, 20 years ago. And there's a shortage of space to put them in. Not only does a larger private jet need more square footage, obviously, can you imagine the kind of building you would need to build to put like a Gulfstream G5 in or anything like that? Um, there's a shortage of those, so that higher rentable square footage, but there's just a not enough. They didn't build enough for the demand today. So Sky Harbor aims to kind of serve that purpose and not only build the buildings, but offer a better product that exists on the market today. Really like luxurious terminals with modern amenities. Like some have essentially like big full kitchens attached to them, nice office space where you can fly in, have a meeting, and leave without actually ever having to leave your hangar. It's a really interesting business model. They pretty much started from scratch when they went public. They were part of the SPAC boom, and they are arguably one of the few really good SPACs that went public. Um, they are a real business. They didn't overvalue the company. They raised money. This is the company that Boston Omaha took public through its SPAC. If you're familiar with Boston Omaha, ticker symbol BOC. But Sky Harbor, they have a market cap of about $720 million, and it is a very thinly traded company. It's very closely held by a lot of the big investors. Sky Harbor's management, Boston Omaha, still has more than 20% of the company, and a couple other private investors own something like 95% of the shares. So very low float, very thinly traded. The average daily volume is less than 20,000 shares of this stock. It's a very thinly traded stock. There are some days when maybe 1,000 shares trade. Um, Again, Tyler's mentioned this in videos before because he talks about the smaller companies. Use limit orders if you're buying a company like this, to ensure that the price doesn't jump between when you place the order and when it actually gets filled. So Sky Harbor is just ramping up. 2023 was kind of their first real revenue year, I would call it, when their first 3 airport campuses went online and are now 95% occupied. Their fourth airport, hangar, what do you call it? Hangar campus, I guess you would call it, is at the San Jose Airport in California. They say that this is their first entry into a tier 1 market, really big private aviation market. It's already almost 60% pre-leased and it hasn't opened yet. They just recently signed a ground lease at Orlando Executive Airport, which is a big private aviation market. They expect 3 more ground leases to commence before the end of 2024, another 6 in 2025, and they have the cash on hand to build out all of their facilities as is. They have some big advantages that are really appealing in the current type of market environment we're in. For one, they have access to municipal bonds as a source of financing. They have no debt because of these. Municipal bonds tend to have 30, 50-year maturities. They have no debts due within the next 30 years. That's a pretty, big differentiator from companies that rely on debt that we normally talk about. Like I said, enough cash to really, build out what they need. They were fortunate enough to issue their municipal bonds that I'm talking about in the 2021, 2022 area when rates were very, very cheap. So they have a very, very low cost of capital. There's a lot of demand here. They recently just did a secondary financing round called a pipe round in SPAC terms. that was led by Palo Alto Network CEO, who's actually a customer, and said there's nothing like this product out there. This is going to be a lot of long tail demand for this in the private aviation world. Sky Harbour CEO really said that this is the year they're really going to be able to start scaling up, and to quote, "We are now gearing up to perform at scale." They're going to grow dramatically in the next few years, and what they have anticipated to have under ground lease by the end of 2025 should represent roughly $170 million of high margin annual revenue. This is a very high margin business at scale. So I'm excited to watch this one grow. I have a position in it, and indirectly through owning Boston Omaha stock. And like I said, very thinly traded. A lot of investors aren't aware of it. Very under the radar name for now. Sky Harbour, SKYH. Tyler?
All right. So we're going to talk about a company that's an overnight success that was actually 50 years in the making. It is called, I apologize if I mispronounce this because I've only read it and never heard it. It's either Lantheus or Lantheus Holdings. Either way.
Isn't that one of the problems of working remotely? You never know how to pronounce anything, right?
Yeah, I always read everything and never actually hear anybody say anything. So ticker symbol is LNTH. This is a very, very, like, even by my standards, I would say this is a unique company. This basically, Lantheus builds radioactive isotopes for medical imaging. So say you go in to get what's called a PET scan. It's kind of a positron emission topography scan. It's basically like the scans that you do for cancer, especially bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, things like that. It's a radioactive isotope that is injected into you. It has a relatively short half-life, but what it does is these type of particular scans, when they pick it, it helps to enhance the imaging so that the radiologist has a better view of what's going on in the organs that that they're trying to assess. This was a business that's been around since the 1960s and was first approved in 1967 for basically use on thyroid, bladder, and as well as salivary glands. So kind of looking for mouth cancer and things like that. And this was a business, it barely grew for a really, really long time. It had a little bit of a jump in the early 2000s when it came out with a product to enhance echocardiograms, so for scanning for cardiac health and things like that. But the real success came in 2021 when it built a new radioisotope specifically for the screening of prostate cancer, which right now in the United States is one of the top 2 or 3, cancer death related towards cancer has been prostate, and one of the most invasive, harder to treat sort of cancers out there. This specific radioisotope that they had designed helped it basically attach to the proteins that are associated with prostate cancer and whether it has metastasized in other parts of the body. So it gives a much more clear view of what is going on in the body during a PET scan specifically for prostate cancer. And it's been a whirlwind for them. This is a company from 2014 to 2021. It went from about $300 million in sales to $425 million in sales. And then from 2021 to 2023, it went from 425 to 1.2 billion. This thing was an absolute godsend for this company. And it's expected over the next 10 to 15 years, while it's under patent protection, that Lantheus is going to have basically a blank check to produce this particular product and license it in conjunction with this particular type of PET scan. Now, where it also gets relatively interesting, and I don't know how much I want to put too much stock in this, but it does have a pipeline of additional both imaging radioisotopes as well as what they're calling radiotherapeutics, where they're attaching an actual prescription drug to a radioactive isotope to send to particular cancers or particular other I think the other thing that they're actually working on is Alzheimer's. And so you have these two very high demand, rare cancers, a lot of like hard tumors that are hard to detect in CAT scans. And they're trying to basically parlay what they've done with this prostate cancer radioisotope and develop pipeline from there. So there's considerable upside if any of these pan out. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I am not smart enough when it comes to clinical trials, whether or not these are, how far along, how statistically significant any of this is. But if we were just to talk about what is on the market today, we have considerable growth as, more and more hospitals adopt this particular PET scan with this particular radioactive isotope. And we have a business right now trading for about 12 times earnings. And for what is likely to be a sort of basically a license to print cash for the next 6 or 7 years at least, at a stock price like that, I think this is a really interesting company. There's some upside, but something I can't really quantify right now. I'm not good enough to say that, but even in the absence of those kind of upside options, I think even that just harvesting the cash from this existing platform is pretty interesting. So Lantheus Holdings, LNTH. I had barely heard about it until a few months ago when it was on my radar, and hopefully now it's on yours.
Once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to click subscribe if you don't subscribe to my channel already. And as always, this video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. Be sure to visit www.fool.com/Frankel to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now.